In this video, we're going to talk about how we can simplify algebraic expressions. To do so, we're going to first understand what like terms are. After we know what they are, we're going to combine them, and then we're going to use other properties that we've already learned to help us simplify them even further. Learning experience-wise, we're going to find some definitions and properties. We're going to look at an example. You're going to do a problem, and then we'll wrap things up with our things to remember and some suggested practice problems at the end. So what are like terms? Basically, they are terms that have the same variable or sometimes don't have a variable. Technically, it gets a little bit more complicated than that. You eventually have to throw in exponents, but for what we're doing right now, let's just worry about them having the same variables. So if we look at this example here, we can underline which terms have the same variables. So we see that these first two both have an x. We only have this one term here that has a y. And then these terms both don't have a variable, so those are going to be like terms as well. That's all that we need to do when it comes to finding like terms. That's it. In terms of combining like terms, we are either going to add or subtract the like terms. So for example, since these are both like terms, we can add these together. So we have 0.5 times x plus 1.7 times x. Because the terms are the same, the x's will stay the same, and we just have to add the coefficients. So 0.5 plus 1.7 is going to be 2.2, and we still have our x. Our y, we only have one term of. So we're going to keep the operation in front of the y, and we're just going to add it to our expression. Finally, we have these last two terms. Neither of these have variables, but we're still going to add them, or sometimes subtract, in this case add these together. 0.5 plus 1 is going to give us 1.5, so we can add that to the end. And now we have a simplified expression. It's still a little bit complicated looking, but that's as simple as we can get it. Each term has a different variable, or no variable at all. So that's as simple as we can make this expression. So let's look at another example. This example is a little bit harder. If we look at what terms we have a 2x and a 0.5y. So already we know that we've just got two terms, they've got different variables, so we can't add those two things together. But if you look at how this is set up a lot like the distributive property. We have our a times b plus c. This very much matches this format. So to simplify it, we can use the distributive property to make this a little bit easier to look at. We're going to take our 4, we're going to multiply it by 2x. All we're really doing here is multiplying the 4 and the 2. So we're going to get 8x. We then do the same thing. We're going to distribute the 4 to the second term. Again, really, we're just multiplying the coefficients, so 4 times 0.5, so it would be 2, and we have y. And we know that our operation is addition. So this is going to be our simplified expression. We have two different terms. Both terms have different variables, so we cannot simplify them any further. Now that we've learned how to simplify an expression, I want you to try it on your own. We have the expression 2x plus 6 plus 5x plus 4. I want you to write this in your spirals or wherever you take notes. Pause the video, give this a try. All right, so things to remember about simplifying expressions. First off, you have to remember what a term is. A term is separated by either a plus sign or a minus sign in your expression. Like terms are terms that have the same variables, or no variable at all. Again, it gets a little bit more complicated, but we'll keep it at that for right now. And then you just have to add and subtract your like terms to simplify. Sometimes you have to use a property of operation first, like we use the distributive property in the example. But really, that's about it. You just have to be able to add and subtract things. If your teacher is a good teacher, they might throw in some decimals for you to add and subtract. That way you can practice that as well. That's really all that there is to it. So, some suggested practice problems at the end. There are 6 expressions for you to simplify. They kind of go in order of difficulty as far as I'm concerned. Think about what are your like terms. That should always be your first step, figuring out what your like terms are. As a challenge problem, you have another expression. Can it be simplified? Why or why not? You're going to explain in words why or why not. So that about wraps up this video. Good luck.
Corporate needs you to find the differences between this picture and this picture. They're the same picture.